Hello everyone and welcome to a video on the solar system. Our solar system is a collection of planets, their moons, and other celestial bodies like asteroids for example, and all these objects orbit or revolve around a star, which in this case is our sun. What we're actually looking at is known as a planetary system, which is a collection of planets, their moons, and celestial bodies that orbit around a star. Our planetary system is named the solar system. It's named that because our sun in Spanish is called Sol, so solar system, which loosely translates to the sun's system. So it's only right that we begin with the star of the show, which is the sun. Our sun is classified as a yellow dwarf star, or if you don't want to hurt the sun's feelings, you can call it a G type star. What this means is that it's not the hottest star out there, and it's also not the biggest by far. There are much larger and hotter stars out there. And if you want to learn more about stars, you're welcome to do that um, on your own. This video covers the sun in our, or the star in our solar system, which is the sun. The sun is mainly made of hydrogen gas in a plasma state. It is immense in size and mass. In fact, it's the biggest thing in the solar system, or the most massive thing in the solar system. It emits large amounts of heat and light out into space. If we go into the mythology behind the sun, it can get quite interesting. And just a heads up, I'm going to be doing the mythology of the planets too, because I figured that, and I'm sure you also agree with me, that learning about the mythology behind these planets and stars can be very interesting and kind of fun. So I thought, why not? So in ancient times, many different cultures would or had a belief that the sun was a type of god, and who could blame them, because the sun provides so much for this planet in terms of energy, which is used to grow food and provides heat and light, which is essential for all life. So it's not surprising that they would think it's some sort of a god. Of course, now we know it's just like a giant ball of gas burning in the center of our solar system, but that doesn't take away from just how incredible it is. So, to run from left to right, the ancient Romans they believed it was the god Helios. The ancient Egyptians would believe that it was their god Ra, and the Aztecs believed that it was their god who hold on, I'm going to say this, Huitzilopochtli. 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 Right. That is a mouthful to say, but there I said it. Huitzilopochtli. So they believed that it was the god Huitzilopochtli, who is both the god of the sun and the god of war. So what's interesting is that all those cultures that I just mentioned believe that the sun would give them life, but it would not. The god would not should not be messed with, which is also true of the real sun. It's as much as it gives life, it's also extremely deadly. All right, then we move on to the planets. The first one up is the closest to the sun, Mercury. And according to the ancient Romans, which, by the way, and just also so you know, I'm only going to stick to Roman mythology here for the rest of the time, just because it keeps it simple, and it's, I guess, I mean, the planets are named after Roman gods, except for Uranus, which we'll get to later. So Mercury is named after the Roman god Mercury, who's the god of speed, um, and the messenger god. So he would deliver messages to the other god, and he would use his incredible speed to do so. And it's actually fitting because since Mercury is so close to the sun, it takes the shortest time to uh, orbit or revolve around the sun. In fact, it takes 88 days, where Earth would take 365 days. So it takes the shortest time of all planets to orbit the star. I'm not going to read all the information for every planet. You're welcome to pause the video at any time, of course, and then read through it yourself if you feel like if I didn't mention something you wanted to hear, or you would just like to take a while to look at it longer. So what I will read is the line at the bottom, because as a teacher, I also want this video targets my learners as well. So Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and it is the smallest planet. Venus is next up. It's the second planet from the sun, and Venus is probably one of the most beautiful planets in our solar system. It shines with a very bright light, and sometimes people mistake it for a star. It's usually the first and brightest star you see in the night sky, which is, when I say it, well, it looks like the first and brightest star. It's actually the planet Venus, and it does this because it reflects a lot of the sun's light off its atmosphere. Venus, the planet, is named after the Roman goddess Venus, which is the goddess of beauty and love. So Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system, and many people think it's Mercury, but it's really Venus. And the reason for this is Venus has a very carbon dioxide rich atmosphere, and this causes a lot of the sun's heat to be trapped inside, or not inside, but rather inside the atmosphere of the planet, causing a buildup of thermal energy, causing the overall temperature of the planet to get extremely hot. So it's kind of like a planet-sized oven, you know. All right. Earth. Earth is the third planet from the sun, and it's the planet that both you and I live on, unless you're an alien, of course, and you're watching this from a very distant planet out there somewhere. And to you, I say hello and thank you for watching my channel. All right, so Earth is the only planet in our solar system that's not named after a god. It's actually named after dirt, or soil, earth, you know, like the ground. And but that doesn't take away from Earth. Earth is a very special planet because it's the only planet that has a steadily and always readily available supply of liquid water on the surface. In fact, more than 70% of its surface is covered in liquid water. And because it's in the Goldilocks zone, it's not too hot or too cold. It's got all the right conditions to support its variety of life, which it does. So it's quite a unique planet in terms of, like, you know, its name doesn't, I guess its name doesn't do that much justice to it. But yes, that's Earth. And you could almost say that it's closest to my heart, literally, because I'm standing on it. Right, so Mars is next up, and Mars is the fourth planet from the sun. Mars is named after the Roman god Mars, which is the god of war. And it's interesting to see that he's red, you know, just like the planet. So Mars is actually, Mars has two moons. Mars is actually much smaller than Earth. It has two moons named Phobos and Deimos. And Mars is kind of like just like a desert planet. But it does have two poles, you can see here and here, similar to Earth, that is covered in frozen or solid water called ice. All right, then we have sort of a buffer zone here, like it's the asteroid belt. And here it's the asteroid belt forms a sort of uneven ring around the sun as it orbits around the sun. It's found orbiting between Mars and Jupiter, but it orbits the sun and not the planets. Then after the asteroid belt, we find our fifth planet from the sun, and the biggest kahuna in our solar system, planet Jupiter. Planet Jupiter, for me, is also very beautiful. It's a gas giant, or a Jovian planet. In fact, the name Jovian planets comes from the name Jupiter, which is Jovian, Jupiter-like planets. So any planet that is a gas giant is a Jovian planet because it's like Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet, and it's named after the Roman god Jupiter, which is who is the king of the gods. So Jupiter was the god of gods, or the king of gods. So it's fitting in the sense that Jupiter is the biggest planet and is named after the king of God, the Roman gods, Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet, so therefore it has the strongest gravity of all planets in the solar system. Then we have Saturn, and Saturn is named after the Roman god um, who is the father of Jupiter. So Saturn was the father of Jupiter and was the Roman god of time and harvest. You can see him holding an hourglass there, and yeah, so harvesting and time. You would think, how is harvest and time kind of, why is it both? Because you think about it, when you harvest, there's a time for harvest and time needed to prepare for harvest. So that's, I guess that's how it fits in. So Saturn is known for its amazing set of rings. Um, these rings are extremely huge and also wide, about I think 4 Earths wide. So they're spectacular. You can actually see them. They're the most visible rings of any of the Jovian planets. In fact, all the Jovian planets have rings, but Saturn's is the most visible. I mean, they can even be seen from Earth. Then we have Uranus. In English, you would say Uranus, even though that sounds like you're talking about someone's butthole. So I don't really like saying Uranus. Um, I prefer to say it how the Greeks, Greeks pronounced it, Uranus. Um, and I understand it's not the same spelling, but it just makes sense to me. So I'm gonna say Uranus. All right, you can hate me on it, or you can just um, follow me with that, and which is the right choice, really. So what makes Uranus special is that Uranus is kind of rotating on its side, so it's almost has a fully vertical rotation, um, which is unique because all the other planets have a more horizontal rotation by their axis or on their axis. Uranus is named after the Roman. Well, actually, this is where Uranus is different. So not only does it spin almost vertically, but Uranus is actually a Greek god. So they named it after the Greek god Uranus, which is the father of Saturn. So it's Jupiter's granddaddy. So Uranus is the Titan, Greek Titan god of the sky, which is more like a primordial, really, but I'm not going to go too much into the mythology. So Uranus is very far away. In fact, it's the second last planet in our solar system. So it takes 84 Earth years to revolve once around the sun. So if you lived on Uranus, and you could actually live on Uranus, then you would experience, in your entire life, you would only experience one revolution around the sun, living on Uranus. Last up, we have Neptune. Neptune is the eighth planet in our solar system, and it's the last one. Um, there's not much known about Neptune since it's so far away, but we do know that it's dark, icy, and stormy. The surface of Neptune has wind speeds of over 1,000 kilometers per hour, which is crazy. I mean, that would probably rip your skin right off your skeleton, like no problem. I think, yeah, and what's even crazier, or another crazy thing to think about it is, a way to think about it is that the wind speeds can actually break the sound barrier since they travel faster than the speed of sound, which is insane. So Neptune is named after the Roman god of the sea. Um, you can actually, what's interesting about that is that one of Neptune's moons is actually called, its largest moon is called Triton, which is uh, both in Roman mythology, it was also the son of Neptune, one of the sons of Neptune, but also his weapon. The weapon you see here is known as uh, Neptune's Triton. So it's just interesting as well, and it's a sort of fun, I guess, comparison. All right, so here we have the solar system, the solar system and the planets, basically, not the whole system, but the planets lined up from closest to furthest. They're actually not this close, and they're not this close, and it would have been possible to actually give the real distances far apart because they're insanely far apart from each other and from the sun. But it's a good way to see the order of them and their size comparisons. So the first four planets are known as your terrestrial planets because they're made up of rock, and they have metallic cores. And your last four planets, or the big ones, are known as your gas giants or your Jovian planets, and they have gaseous surfaces with icy cores. So their cores are very compressed by all that pressure and the gravity that of the planet. So they have a solid core as well. Right, so a few honorable mentions. Our dwarf planets, of course, we can't forget them. They're part of the solar system. So, according to the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, they have standards for what a dwarf planet is. All right, so a dwarf planet is a planet that orbits the sun. So it's not a moon because moons orbit planets, right? So there's one. So these planets all orbit the sun. Um, has enough mass to be round, like, okay, this guy didn't get the memo. This Haume, I guess, he's round ish, kind of, right? So he fits, I think. And then has not cleared its orbit of debris. So what this means is that in its orbit, its path of orbit, or its orbital path, there's other things as well. Whereas if you look at the other planets, there's nothing but that planet in that orbital path. But with these dwarf planets, I suppose they haven't cleaned up uh, the mess yet. No, it's not that simple. I'm taking, obviously making jokes of it, but what it means is that there's still other things that are sharing their orbital path with them. All right, so just to name them, we have Pluto, which used to be a planet in our solar system. When I was a kid, it was, and then it was excommunicated um, from the Planet Council. No, it was just decided that it wasn't, obviously because it has not cleared its orbit. So I guess it was like not considered a planet then. And then we have Eris, we have Haume, we have Makemake or Makemake, and we have Ceres. Ceres, I know you find in the asteroid belt, by the way. It's one of the larger objects inside the asteroid belt. All right, and then we also have Halley's Comet. We can't forget Halley's Comet, the most famous of comets in our solar system. Halley's Comet comes around close enough to see from Earth, by the way, with your naked eye, every 75 years. It was last seen in 1986, and the next time you will see it is in 2061, and I will be a grandpa or dead. Oh, I hope it's the prior. I hope I'm not dead yet. I really would like to see Halley's Comet. I'm sure you feel the same. All right, and then we have a more holistic image of our solar system. We see that the sun's there. We have Mercury, we have Venus, we have Earth, we have the moon, we have Mars, and we have the asteroid belt, followed by Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Halley's Comet. And then we have Pluto over there, and then we have another asteroid belt called the Kuiper belt. We see Aries, we see Makemake, or Makemake, and they're serious. Kind of there in the asteroid belt, you'll see I did mention that. All right, so I hope that you found it interesting. I know I sure did, and never stop learning. Till next time, stay awesome.